Hey, Miss Lancaster here. Just another quick video regarding our chapter. So now we're moving into chapter 7. Okay, so chapter 7 is social class and the structure of inequality. So we're starting our inequality chapters here. Um, Basically, what I want you to think about while you're reading through chapter 7 is really understanding that you're looking at this new system, a social process called stratification. So when we talk about social processes, these are actions that take place within our social institutions, within our social structure. So the process of social stratification is ultimately the social process in which we are arranged into ranked categories of some sort based on some some sort of category or some sort of instance, some sort of resource. Okay, so it's the division of society into groups arranged in the social hierarchy. If we think back to when we learned in chapter 4 and 5 about statuses and groups that we're part of, right? Our statuses are the positions that we hold within the hierarchy. The groups place us with those statuses, but then our categories and areas, things can also place us within the stratification system. So now we're really looking at the actual systems themselves. So stratification system is that ongoing process of sorting people into various levels of success or lack of success or access to resources. Okay, so our stratification systems are legitimated by our cultures, by the society, the institutions all around us. Okay, so when we're looking at this and we're going through it, you're going to be reading about different types of stratification systems: slavery, the caste system, the social class system, the estate system. These are all different ones that are going to be discussed in your textbook. One of the key things that I want you to think about while you're really reading through the information about the systems of stratification is that there are different ways that we stratify, and there are different forms of systems. So there are systems that are considered an ascribed stratification system. And if you think back to what an ascribed status is, it's the status that you're born with, that you have little to no control over. In an ascribed stratification system, such as like the caste system, you are born into your social class, right? Your social standing, right? Not some specific class, but your social standing. And that's where you're going to stay. There is no real ability for social mobility, which we'll talk about in this chapter as well. Mobility is the ability to move up and down, or even side to side. In an ascribed stratification system, which would be a closed stratification system, there is no movement, okay? In an open stratification system or an achieved stratification system, such as the social class system in the US, you can earn your position, and you have to earn your position. Kind of ultimately thinking about, we're born into our social class, right? It's originally ascribed to us because we don't get to pick our parents. The parents that we have are the ones that give us our status. They give us the access to resources. That is part of this inequality piece. If I'm raised in a lower class family or an upper class family, depending on what family I am raised in, what social standing I am as a child and as a young adult, that will impact the resources that I have as far as the education that I have, the jobs that my parents have, the work, the just extra income, right? The extra things that you can do are all based around your social class as well. So we're ascribed it at first, but then we must earn it. So that's an achieved system. So we have this social class system that is based on achievement. Okay, so while you're reading through it, right, pay attention to the different types of social class systems. Pay attention to how stratification works. It is that process of layering and categorizing people. And that where we are as far as in our social class does impact our life chances. That's a piece that the text will talk about too. Our life chances and our life opportunities, the access to resources that we have is all based around our social standing, our spot in the social hierarchy. While looking through and reading through the theories, pay attention to how both conflict and functionalism are talking about the structure of society and how it works. Functionalism is really kind of focusing on how we're all motivated to stay and work in our position, or to potentially move up in position to at least maintain, right? Where there's this motivation piece. Conflict theory focuses on the competition that exists within society to kind of grab our spot, right? So recognizing competition and motivation are very intertwined and interconnected. It is functional for society. for people to try to get their place and maintain their place in society. But it can also cause some structural conflict, right? So just kind of recognizing that, thinking about it from a symbolic interactionist perspective, we do have symbols, we have meanings, we have things that are all attached to our social class that kind of influence whether or not we recognize somebody as being one social class or not. Okay, so those are aspects of this theory as well. This chapter as well, thinking about how we have symbols that shape what we expect of social classes, the kind of education that they have, the kind of jobs that they will have. All of those things are wrapped around the idea of social class, especially in the US, and social standing and hierarchy. Okay. Social mobility, there are different types of mobility, but it is really about the ability to move. If you are in a closed system, right, a closed stratification system, it means that there is no ability for movement. So social mobility only takes place in an open class system, such as like what we have in the US. Now, mobility is impacted by lots of different factors, but there are also different ways that we measure it. So when we think about mobility, we're really thinking about how we measure the movement within a social system. Okay, so social mobility can be measured from an intergenerational level or from an intra-generational level. Right? So intergenerational is from one generation to the next. Intra would be within your own lifetime, the movement that takes place. There's horizontal, of course, side to side. There is vertical, up and down, right? We have to kind of think about the different types of mobility that exist when we're thinking about this chapter. So poverty is also discussed in this chapter because poverty is a result of stratification, is an action within stratification where if you are at the bottom, right, you will potentially be living in poverty, and impoverished is basically the lack of resources, right? So take your time reading this chapter. It's a lot. There's a lot of information, but it really is kind of a starting point for us for the rest of the semester in understanding how inequality is kind of built into our social structure. And there are benefits to it, but there are also disadvantages. Okay, so just kind of recognizing the positives and negatives of aspects of society, thinking about it from a theoretical perspective, really focusing on the functionalist idea of everything having a purpose and a function, but just because it's functional for society doesn't mean it's functional for the individual, right? Thinking about it from a conflict lens, how the inequality in the structure does create a competition, right? And then thinking about it from a symbolic interactionist perspective of really paying attention to the meanings that we give to things. So let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you have a great day.